Welcome everybody to another iteration of Coach's Corner. We've been lucky enough as Forté Sports Medicine to partner with IHSAA to bring this to a larger number of people involved in high school athletics. So I think this is a great opportunity to bring different sports medicine topics to you guys and to learn together from our guests that we have each month. This month we have Isaac Hicks, who is he's a board certified sports dietitian. He is a licensed dietitian, certified strength and conditioning specialist. He's a sports and lifting junkie and a nutrition junkie. He's a great, person to have in our Bloomington community here, both with his faith and his kids. And I've enjoyed getting to know him over the years. He'll be talking about sports and nutrition today. Just as a reminder, I want everybody to remember, please fill out any evaluations afterwards and give us feedback about the webinar and how we can improve it and make it better tailored for what you guys need. During the presentation or while we're chatting later, please use the chat function in Teams, which is at the top. Just click the little chat button. There will be a box that you can type in. I will monitor that as we go through. Also, quick shout out to Bedford North Lawrence girls basketball team that I take care of. They are playing for the state championship on Saturday, so I'm excited to be there for that. And without further ado, Isaac, all yours.
All right, awesome. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you guys today. Talk about something that's very dear to my heart. I'm a former college athlete and was a high school athlete as well. And I would say I wish I knew what I know now related to nutrition. Maybe my career would have went a little differently. I had aspirations, as I'm sure a lot of young high school athletes have, to play professionally, and had the pleasure of being able to play Division I football at University of Delaware. And things didn't pan out, but, I think I found my next love. Everybody's got to eat. And that was one of the things that really attracted me to nutrition, was just being able to know I could have some type of impact in individuals' lives that can help enhance not only just performance, but just enhance their lives in general. So as you see there, I'm the director of performance nutrition. I'm at Indiana University. I was previously at Liberty University down in Lynchburg, Virginia, in the same position about 5 years ago. And I actually got my start working in high school athletics in the state of Delaware. The high schools actually have what's called wellness centers, where we operated off of a free grant from the state, where we had social workers, physicians, nurse practitioners, and registered dietitians that operate, and a staff assistant that operated these clinics in all of our public high schools. And I had the pleasure of being able to rotate every day of the week. I was at a different high school. And I had these clinic hours that I would be there, and the students could come see me for free. And the majority of the students that I would see were athletes who had questions, anything ranging from how do I gain weight to, hey, I'm being looked at, how can I shed some body fat, to just general health and wellness questions, to steroid use. There was a lot of questions about that, so I really enjoyed working with that population. So you guys definitely are blessed. They're a very impressionable population, and the sky's the limit for them. So we can go to the next slide. So this quote I hang my hat on every day. We have a staff of 3 staff dietitians here, plus myself, and we service all of our athletes here. And one of the things I like to share with all of our recruits that come through here, the families, parents, is that, just competing in general, you're going to have just a general nature. Just everyone's going to be competitive out there for the most part, where everyone else is, competitively, we're talking about their motivation, they're motivated. They may also be trained well, or pursuing, just a higher training level, et cetera, where everything else is equal. That diet piece is something that can be hard for a lot of people to grasp, but it can have a tremendous impact. And not just talking about longevity in the sport, but also just even immediately. This is something that I like to share with some of our athletes here right now, just to tell them, hey, you know what? There are things that you can do tonight, that are going to mess up how you will perform tomorrow, and then also how you will eat tomorrow, whether it's before the game or during the game, et cetera, that can definitely have a tremendous impact on how you perform. And so that diet, and I asked him, I was like, if it's at 1%, if it's at 2%, competing in the level that we do here now, and I've worked with some Olympic athletes, sometimes, we're talking about a millisecond, et cetera, so what is that edge? And to me, that diet is the X factor when it comes to that. So, and this was a quote in 1995, so we're talking 25 years ago, over that. And, nowadays they've just seen, there's just so much research that is out there that supports, a healthy, adequate diet, which I'm gonna share with you guys briefly here, and the impact that it actually has on functional performance, day-to-day longevity, when we talk about performance, and staying in the game and competing longer. And then on top of that, we're talking about just later in life. We can go to the next slide, please. So, I just wanted to walk you guys through a few things that, that we do here as practitioners and sports dietitians when it comes to working with our athletes. A lot of times it's, we have athletes that don't have any general basis in nutrition at all. So they think, when I ask them, what do you think a good diet is? They're like, well, I'll have a salad, once a week, or I'll have I might have a piece of fruit, later, or does, my high C, orange juice, my high C orange punch, et cetera, that counts as juice, right? And there's just a lot of education on what's a carbohydrate, what's a protein, source, et cetera. So there's a lot of education gaps that we have to kind of work out. And so, so it typically takes, depending on the level of education and knowledge, it typically takes about 10 or 15 minutes just to really kind of set a foundational standpoint, with the student athlete, just to start talking about, food, one, being energy, but two, the type of food you're eating. We can talk about with the quality of energy that you're going to have. I'm not sure how many of you guys may have access to a sports dietitian or just a registered dietitian in general. Registered dietitians, regardless if they have a sports certification or not, should definitely be able to walk through some of the foundational elements, and also be able to speak to, some of the athletic sides and performance sides of nutrition as well. But this is a conversation that, hopefully the medical practitioner will have with the athlete, especially if there's someone that we can see or, is dealing with, some things that may be diet related. And typically, again, foundationally, we created a handout here years ago that was called Nutrition Readiness. And the whole thing behind it was there were 6 steps we had on there, 6 things that our athletes had to check off that they were doing on a regular basis, just to make sure that the foundation was set for them. And those things, the first one was, how many meals are you skipping, per day? You should be getting 3 meals a day. Are you having a fruit or a vegetable per day? And we're just talking about one. So we're talking about like very, very basic, just to make sure that, from a mindset standpoint, that they're in a good place, knowing that, every food group is going to contribute to that fueling cycle, that fueling picture for them. How many times a week are you dining out? We're looking at how many grams, not how many grams, but how many types of carbs are you having in a per day? Do you know what carbohydrates are? Are you getting at least 2 to 3 sources of lean protein a day? Do you understand what a lean protein is? And we're actually talking about whole foods, not necessarily protein shakes or protein bars, so. And I'm not saying that those things cannot fit, in a particular individual's diet, but it is not, especially when we talk about working with the younger population, when we're talking middle school, high school, it's, research has shown that, just simply setting up them for success from a performance nutrition standpoint is just making sure that they're getting, at least 2 to 3 solid meals in a day, and that they do have some snacks surrounding, those meals as well, as their energy needs will dictate. And so looking at their plate model, looking at how they actually set up their plate when they're sitting down to eat. And again, if you look at under questions to ask, point 2, are meals home cooked, or are they dining out a lot? Are they meeting carbohydrate, protein, hydration goals? Without even getting into the complicated aspects of, where your fat level is. Are you getting your vitamins and minerals in there? Typically, if we have our athletes building their plates out the right way, and in 2 slides later, I'm going to talk about what that looks like. But they're going to be, for the most part, meeting their minimal requirements for their vitamin and mineral needs. So not even bogging them down with that information. It's just really, hey, let's just make sure you're getting enough energy, period. And also, obviously, with a lot of strength training and muscle turnover, we'll make sure you're getting enough protein daily. So the convincing part is always the hardest thing. Okay, it's just is it worth your time? I even deal with our college athletes here. Do you think it's worth your time to look into how you're eating, your approach at the table, as I like to call it? And some of the things I used to convince them is that, hey, you know what, there is greater potential for athletic success. We're talking about longevity in sport and simply in life. One of the ways I get our football team here to actually eat their fruits and vegetables, obviously, other than being in their face about it at meal times, is I tell them, like, hey, you know what? You may not feel like eating one right now, but sometimes you don't feel like going to the gym and working out, or showing up to practice and training, et cetera, to the weight room, but you still do it because that long-term wise, you're going to get stronger. So food-wise, similar approach, you're going to get healthier. There's reasons why I love to refer back to our professional athletes out there. Some of them spend thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just to invest in their body. And that comes with having personal chefs, that comes with, changing up their diet, working with a dietitian, et cetera, just simply because they know that if they take care of their body is their insurance policy. They take care of their body, it's going to allow them to make more money in the long run. Because no one wants to be injured, right? So I talk to our athletes about, especially when it comes to fruit and vegetable intake, we're trying to make sure they're increasing that intake to make sure that it actually is expanding their playing career, decreasing injury risk, overall well-being. And again, when you get in some of those highly competitive levels, if we can improve your performance or recovery by 1%, 2%, 3% by simply changing up what you're doing on a normal basis when it comes to your diet, then, and you should be all in for that. So, and as we know, changing behaviors is hard. I love to use 80-20, 90-10 rules. Just telling them, hey, I'm not telling you got to eat salads and do nothing but whole grains every day and nothing but lean proteins. But you know what, 80%, 90% of the time, you should be focusing on those, and you leave the other stuff to make it fit, for the rest of the time. You can go to the next slide for me. So the first thing, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one, is simply eating. I would say the number one issue, again, going back to that 6-step process that we have for that foundational elements, number one issue that we have is our athletes just simply don't eat enough. And part of that is education. They don't understand what their needs are. They don't understand that, I have football players out here who are burning 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day, just simply through their training, and then also with practice. And then on top of that, they're going to class, coming back home, they've got to study, et cetera. So all of that requires energy, and helping them understand that, sometimes the problem is just simply, and I'll take this approach now and I'll claim it. I'll tell our athletes, I'll be like, hey, right now, I just want you to eat enough. I want you to eat enough so that you feel good, but I just want you to get enough calories in, and that's typically the first step. And the second step is, let's start talking about what those calories are. All right. But for the most part, it's just simply, getting enough. Are you getting breakfast in there? If you look at the graphic on your right hand side, are you eating breakfast? Are you getting a snack in, before your workout? Are you getting a snack in after your workout? And the post workout, I'm really heavy on. The pre-workout, just really dependent upon the timing of the day, and also that athlete themselves, depending on, again, the timing of the day and what their body can tolerate. But are you getting lunch in? Are you getting dinner in? Do we need to have, snacks, etc.? But foundationally, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and a post-workout snack is really what I heavily emphasize. And so we assess caloric needs. You can find a number of resources online, just simply to, we have the Mifflin equation, the Harris-Benedict equation. I utilize the Cunningham equation for our athletes, but that's only because I have composition information on them. And so it tends to be a little bit more of an accurate equation. And then we use MET data, or metabolic equivalent data, to really look at their workouts and how intense they are, to really give us a good picture, to really know from a density standpoint how much energy they should be taking in. And then we look at frequency. An athlete should be consuming meals every 3 to 4 hours, meals or snacks. And so what we like to do here is just identify what the schedule gaps are, depending on the day. Now the way that a high school day is broken up, it just varies. Over the years, I've seen how high school schedules have changed. Definitely different than when I was in high school. But just really making sure athletes should be able to find time to get a good solid meal in, or a heavy snack in that will hold them over until they're actually able to get a good meal in. And that's going to all be based on time of day, upcoming practices, training schedules, etc. You can go to the next next slide for me. So, just looking at what should those meals, so again, just building off of that foundational piece, what should those meals look like? This is what we call the athlete's plate. You can, if you did a Google search on athlete's plate, performance plate, etc., you should be able to find, actually the IHSAA Olympic Committee, they actually have a set of plates out there, which I'm going to reference on the next slide, that we've modified here, and just put our graphics and stuff on. But the foundation of the athlete's plate is the majority of the energy that's coming on that plate is going to be from carbohydrates. And then we're looking at a quarter of your plate being from protein, and a quarter of your plate coming from that fruit and vegetables piece. And then making sure we're incorporating, dairy in there as beverages, or dairy in there as part of the protein equation, protein part of the plate, etc. And then getting just healthy fats in general. This provides, in this small graphic here, provides a lot of useful information, especially foundationally for a lot of high school athletes, just kind of understand what their plate should look like. Now, some of our larger athletes, I realize also high school athletes are built differently than when I was in high school playing football. So this is just to give them an overall ratio of what their plate should look like. Some of them may need 2 plates, but they would look just like this. So overall ratio. So half of what they're eating is coming from this, a quarter are coming from this, etc. You go to the next slide for me. And then when you look in the graphic to the right, this is how you modify it based on, what the training intensities are, or the off season and season, et cetera, what they're doing and what their goals are. So we got composition goals as far as like the plates go. And you look at, so really a lot of what you're seeing is being modified and moved around. It's typically the protein, just depending on what the goals are. And then also that carb picture is the biggest one. Typically heavy training days, heavy carbs, lighter training days, lighter amount of carbs. And then it's just going to be based on what their goals are. So we'll modify it based on their goals. We may do a deeper dive, into what like macronutrient needs are. And I have some recommendations there. Everything is done basically in kilos. You can do you can do the factor and reduce it down to pounds just by dividing that number by 2.2. But that just really gives us kind of like a background from a foundation standpoint. Again, you're probably not going to have a high school athlete that you're going to want tracking their macros, protein and fat intake, unless, they're really motivated and they really want to do that. I can't say in the 6-7 years I worked with high school athletes that I had a lot that were that particular about tracking that was left. I would look at that just internally on my end, but I just really wanted to make sure that they were eating on a regular basis and meeting their protein needs. And so I would talk about at their meals what their protein sizes should look like, et cetera, and then also the carbs pieces. But one of the other things that was really important for me to also realize in working with that population was also just looking at lifestyle patterns. I think they're, I was working in a lot of low income schools, and then I had, some affluent schools that I was able to be in as well. And, just the differences in what they are exposed to at home and stuff. These are all things that we had to really think about. I can't tell if someone's never had If they rarely have green vegetables, I'm not going to talk to them about eating green vegetables, right? I'm going to talk to them about other nutrients other foods that are going to give them similar nutrient structure, but I wouldn't necessarily, be pressing hard on something. Or if I knew from a financial standpoint, they didn't really have access to, fruits and vegetables, or even home cooked meals, et cetera, then I would have to work with those athletes just really to talk about, all right, well, where are you at? What do you have success? What do you have access to? And then go from there and expand, hopefully that nutrient palette, just sharing a few things. And then obviously the frequency of how they're eating, et cetera, is going to be based on, again, their individual goals, et cetera. And so that means not only just those foundational meals, but also the snacks that we'd be incorporating. You go to the next slide for me. This is an example, something. So one of the things I require for our dietitians here is that they meet with their teams once a month to educate. And so the teams I work with here, are football and men's and women's basketball. And, these are some examples of handouts that I've talked with them about. And even them, it's just simply, hey, you know what? I'm going to give you and show you examples of what your meal should look like. The components that should be in there, and even the pictures that you see here, just knowing how their workouts are structured. And with them, I do want them to take some ownership on making sure, that they know how to read food labels, so they can know how to get how many grams of carbs, how many grams of carbs are going to be in that snack that they're choosing to have versus the ones that I've identified here on this sheet. Okay. And then, in going through and walking them through this, I'll always provide just that bit of information just as far as so they can understand this is why this is being emphasized. Because some of them, they're especially coming from high school, maybe they're only used to eating 2 times a day, or 3 times a day, not really snacking, et cetera. So I want to make sure I set the foundation again from an education standpoint so they know that this is the reason and it's important. This is the reason why we're emphasizing this and to help benefit you. And this is the ideal situation. This is the best practice piece that I like to share with them, and then we modify it based on personal preferences, modify it based on schedules, et cetera, as I've referenced earlier, just to make sure that they're in a good place. You can go to the next slide for me. I just wanted to share some tips with you guys related to building mass versus cutting weight. Again, these are very, foundational. I don't like to overwhelm our athletes with too much information unless I feel like they're prepared and they're ready for that. So simply, without them actually sitting down and counting calories, to make sure they're getting 500 extra calories a day to put on weight or put on mass. I just tell them, hey, eat half a cup of your favorite type of trail mix or nut variety. I know that they're high in healthy fats. I know that, it's a good source of protein. And I know that because they're high in fat and it has a good source of protein, that's going to be higher in calories, or something else. Have a PB&J sandwich. You can see they're add nut butter to any kind of granola bar. If they have a lot of our teams here love Cliff bars, so I'll tell them, hey, just spread some peanut butter on a Cliff bar. You're adding extra 100, 200 calories right there. Have 2 cups of a higher calorie cereal. As far as their meals go, instead of just simply drinking water, why don't we add some calories to that water? Do juice, do milk, instead of Powerade or Gatorade at meals. Or water at meals, adding higher calorie toppings to their foods, and give them some examples of things there. As far as improving composition, I talked to them about caloric reduction. It's really about that energy equation. And so making sure that we're underneath the calories expended for the day, so how do we do that? Okay, well, simple changes are choosing grilled meats, no fried or breaded foods, changing sauces, reducing sauces, as opposed to what I mentioned earlier with gaining, consuming only water or 0-calorie drinks. I talked to them a lot about carb cycling. Carbohydrates are primary macronutrients that's consumed in the American diet. So people have success on low carb diets and losing weight simply because, you take away what 60-70% of a person's diet is, or you start to reduce it, you're going to reduce calories overall. So I'll talk to them about that. Now we'll make sure that they focus on making sure they're getting their carbs. So a lot of our teams train early here. So you get their carbs earlier in the day. and then also post-workout and maybe with their lunch, but then dinner, maybe that's one of those low carb meals. Okay. And that's a way that we can actually cut out 200-300 calories or more. And then also there's snacking involved outside of that activity window where maybe carb-based snacks will be more beneficial for performance. Any other snacks that occur after that, maybe need to be high protein or higher fiber, such as like some of your fruit or vegetable snacks, just to make sure we're minimizing calories. And then we also talk about, because with improving body composition, reducing body fat, we also want to make sure, since we're in a deficit, that we're not compromising any lean mass. And so I make sure that they increase their protein intake within that number, that the overall caloric number that we're targeting, just to make sure that we're preserving lean mass, that we're not setting their bodies up for failure related to catabolism when it comes to protein. So you go to the next slide for me. I believe this is one of my last slides here. So supplementation, I know supplements are big, especially in high school. I know they're big here. Our athletes are drug tested on a regular basis. And so with that being said, some of this information, especially when we talk about, is it a clean product, is something that, I really want to emphasize and drive home with our athletes. Those little insignias and badges that you see on the slide here really are just a guide for our athletes to be able to look for only products that they want to take that actually carry one of these insignias, because they, except for the USP one, everyone up there will actually screen for banned substances. USP is United States Pharmacopoeia, and you'll find that just on typically on dietary supplements, vitamin mineral supplements, and that just looks at truth in label and also absorbency. So but the other ones, I tell them to look for one of those, especially if we're talking about like any type of pre-workout. So thinking about taking creatine, beta alanine, even protein supplements, etc. Want to make sure that they understand that it is a loosely regulated industry, and that, if they take all supplements at their own risk. So, these are just some companies that can go in and help minimize risk for them. So it's 3 questions I always have tell them to ask themselves, and it's something that you guys should be looking into as well, especially if you have those athletes that are probably going to be going on to, to play, collegiately or professionally elsewhere. It's 3 questions. Is it clean? Is it safe? Is it effective? The safety piece, really important, especially the medical side. We look at, are certain supplementations contraindicated for you, simply because of maybe your medical or family history, your personal or family history from medical side. Are there going to be any adverse risk effects for you, or in general, does the supplement, contain things, or maybe contains a high enough substance? So for instance, let's talk about like caffeine, or is there going to be any adverse side effects? And whereas, you're trying to gain that performance edge with it, maybe there's a downside to it, and it won't necessarily equivocate to increasing your performance, but cause other issues. And so look at the safety levels, and then also, is it effective? It's a $1 billion market out there. I joke with our athletes when I'm having this conversation with them. I'll tell them, I'm like, hey, I can go in my garage, slap a fancy label, especially with some of the graphic software that's out there on a bottle, tell you it's going to decrease your 40 time by, half a second. And you might just buy it just to try it. And you have no idea what I put in it, so, and so with that, I try and tell them, hey, make sure you're bringing this product to our way, and because we're gonna vet it. And there are sites that, not that I'm expecting you guys to actually look and, go and do a deep dive into supplementation, et cetera. But you can actually go to any of these companies that are up there, and they actually will list products, that actually carry their insignias. You can actually type in, I'm looking for like pre-workout. You can type in pre-workout, you can type in creatine, protein, et cetera, and they'll list products that actually carry their certification on it, just kind of help you in that process. But the effectiveness piece is really important. We look at obviously research-based items, and you can just do a general PubMed search and find out what's beneficial, what's been proven versus what's not. And there's certain categories that are out there. If you look at certain papers that will say category A means it's proven and there's a benefit, a timing benefit, dosage, et cetera. Category B, some proven benefit, and then there's like a category C where it's like no proven benefit. Research is either mixed or there's no research out there at all, but yet there's probably people still buying it. You go to the next slide for me. And that's just a list I just put on. This is just a list of services that we provide here that all serve, again, that picture, from our standpoint, to helping our student athletes make the best decisions when it comes to nutrition. So, and that's it. I thank you for your time. I hope I didn't go too long, Doc.
Not at all.
All right.
That was great information, Isaac. You. Echo. Are you getting that?
I'm not hearing any echo, no.
All right, we'll just keep going. I noticed you had a picture of Coach Allen on your slides, and there were actually some colored vegetables on it. I know that I think you planted that vegetable on his plate because he is a white and brown eater only. Very hard to get him to eat anything that's green or orange or colored. So good job on that. I wanted to talk about your thoughts on microbiome, right?
Yes.
So you brought up a lot of awesome topics. I could probably talk all day about it. And I don't know if you know this, my wife's an occupational therapist, and she is a certified functional nutritionist as well, just started her business. And so we've always talking about this type of stuff and listening to podcasts. And I think the microbiome has become something that was never understood to something that we realize affects not only how we absorb calories and nutrients, how we maintain a healthy body, but also how we maintain a good mental health and the relationship with microbiome. Do you give any thought, or can you just define, one, the microbiome, and two, can you give any thought to how you might bring that in for an athlete?
Yeah. So I will say we don't get too heavy into detail talking about the gut and the microbiome. Forgive me for using gut. I'm just so used to using that term and referring to it. Obviously we deal with a lot of athletes from a GI standpoint who are, whether it's they're dealing with celiacs or IBS or IBD, or we may have athletes that due to injuries or infections, they're constantly getting sick, or, and so we may look at from a GI standpoint, introducing probiotics into their diet. And we actually carry one. So probiotics is actually one of, from the NCAA. NCAA regulates what we can actually provide. And so from an NCAA standpoint, probiotics is still on that impermissible list. That means I can talk to them blue in the face about the benefits of it, but I just can't yet provide it unless we have one of our team physicians, write a note for that individual in their chart saying that we can provide it. We do actually carry some in-house here. I'm a huge fan of it. I think everyone honestly should be on some type of probiotic, to be honest with you, just because when we're looking at the inflammation that a lot of our athletes, do deal with, and then I think also with COVID, it really highlights the benefit of, just bacteria in general in the gut that actually helps regulate our immune system function, so, we don't get it. Again, we don't get, heavy into the details with our athlete related to, talking about, the specific type of, of gut, the microbiota themselves, even talking with them about it. But I will talk to them about, hey, you know what, let's get some more fruits and vegetables in your diet because they're a great source of prebiotic fiber that feeds the healthy bacteria in your gut. Or, hey, you just did a heavy round of antibiotics and they don't discriminate. So they probably killed off some of that good bacteria. So, how about we give you a probiotic to replace some of that good bacteria, and then
so you just hit a couple of big highlights, right? One, inappropriate use of antibiotics, which kill off our natural gut microbiome, which can have major lifelong effects. And two is food diversity, that you're not just eating the same 3 foods in ranch dip every day, but you are eating a colorful plate with a variety of whole foods that will build up that microbiome over time. So that's really important.
And one of our new factors here, Doc, I just wanted to bring it up. We actually provide kombucha. We have a kombucha here in office, so.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, kombucha, which has, live bacteria. You had yogurt on multiple slides, right, with active probiotics, kimchi, right? Fermented foods are a great source of that to help build it up. So those are all great examples of things to just add in, a couple tablespoons a day
Yep.
can build up that microbiome over time. We've got a question here that I think is a great segue. It has to do with, I think if we look at our country as a whole, obesity, diabetes is a huge problem. If you look at youth percentage of food that they get, most of it is ultra processed food. So like 67, 2/3 of what most youth eat today is ultra processed food. It's not even a real food. It's a food-like product. Um, how do you balance getting a young athlete what they need from a caloric standpoint and not going too far to where you're giving them a setup to have a problem later on?
Yeah. So again, it's about balance. And I think any registered dietitian will tell you that we're not extreme on either ends of the spectrum, right? And we want our athletes to understand that there's a time and a place for everything. And so when it comes to a diversity of foods, the whole food picture is where we approach first. Okay. We want to make sure foundationally that, again, I was talking about foundationally the breakfast, lunch, and dinner in those meals that we are having, those whole foods. Even when we take them to the grocery store and do shopping with them, we talk about shopping the perimeter of the grocery store first, and then maybe venturing in, to get some of those like get some pretzels maybe to have, whatever as a snack, with some hummus on the side, or, things like that to actually have on the side, to have those processed foods to fit functionally if they need them. And so you'd probably be not you, I've seen you there before, but just think about our, like our snack setup for football on game day. When it comes to working with athletes, we have to think about nutrient timing, and we have to think about, just functional nutrition in general when it comes to how your body, is going to be able to utilize something, and what timing window, for it. So, and that's where when we educate our athletes, we say, hey, you know what, processed foods have a place. Okay, they should not make up the bulk of your diet. So if we're talking about that 10 or 20%, that's where they need to be. Okay, but only really surrounding a workout, because the process, which means your body doesn't have to do a lot of processing of it. So we need some quick carbs in your body. Pretzels are going to probably be the best bet, versus me giving you like brown rice or quinoa or something, right before you got to run around. So,
I think you answered that question well, which is, look, the foundational piece is education and going, look, we want whole foods. We want a variety of foods. We want, veggies and fruits in there. But in this time of, we need appropriate, calories and protein to keep your weight and to maintain goals. Those are two slightly different things.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. When we're talking longevity and long-term health versus sport performance, there's a little difference
There's
there.
a difference. Yeah.
When we talk about a variety of foods and that education component, how do you think that fits in for when the athlete is done with their career? There's an aftermath for some of these athletes that go from high revved up, burning calories like crazy, and then next day, I'm done with my career, and now I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And how do you think that education component fits in there?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. So one of our goals here is to make sure that we have these exit kind of nutrition, and call it interviews, but nutrition sessions with our student athletes. So as they're leaving, and honestly, the motivated ones, they're the ones that are going to be like, hey, Isaac, I know that I'm not going on professionally to do anything. I'm going on professionally to, to go work a career somewhere. I'm not going to go play sports. And like, I have linemen, for instance, like, Isaac, I was told I needed to be plus 300. I've been eating like this to be, and naturally I know I'm not 300 pounds, and I will confirm you're not naturally 300 pounds. So what I'll walk them through is, again, we'll talk about the carb cycling piece. I'll really get into talking with them about, hey, you know what? from a carbohydrate standpoint, you fueled your body. You use that fuel to get you to where you need it to be at. But right now, you're not going to be training, like that. So let's talk about caloric reduction, just through your carbohydrate intake. And then let's also talk about, we're talking about that processed food piece. There really isn't no need for it now. We really want to start to gravitate towards more of your whole foods, or making that more of a and say that's going to be the standard, and, in your diet now. Should have been then too, but but we want to focus more on that because, hey, your body has no need for something that's going to need to break down within 30 minutes since you're not going to really be training or doing anything active. But we also encourage our athletes to stay active. It's not going to be 2-3 hours of training a day. It's going to be, maybe a half hour here, an hour here, a couple times a week, so, but we have those exit, to answer your question, we have those exit interviews with them, and we try and, obviously we have a lot of turnover with our athletes here, so we try and get a lot of them in just to talk to them about that. And I actually have a resource from one of my peers up at Purdue that she wrote, and it's called actually right here, From Athlete to Normal Human. And so it's a book that basically just addresses, I'll show you guys here. I don't get any kickback or anything on it, but it's a great book. Are
you allowed to have anything Purdue there in your office?
I know, right? But she's been doing this for a long time, and she felt like there was just a need for a resource to be able to look at and give to athletes so they can actually know, hey, and there's recipes in there that that are similar to that cycle. Hey, higher protein, more fruits, more vegetables here, lower carb, and then also engaging, staying active, while also managing, whether it's the microbiome, whether it's the, whether it's your whatever that activity level is going to be, et cetera. So it's just really shows them how to shop. There's grocery lists. There's a lot of different aspects in there. And these are all things that we'll talk with them one-on-one about and go through details with. So
great. One more question.
Yeah.
How do you combat these red and green powders, right? Like, hey,
yeah,
here's all your veggies in this ground up powder.
Yeah.
Mix it up, take it once a day. Is that something you would say, okay, fine, do it once a day, but it doesn't necessarily replace those whole foods, or how do you address that?
Yeah, it's a great question because we do have a few athletes and a few basketball players, and I think about that come to mind as soon as you mentioned that. I don't like the taste of fruits and vegetables, but so if I can get it in this tablespoon of powder, then why not? And why the idea is great. And one of the things I mentioned to them is that you're not going to be getting that prebiotic fiber in that in that powder, and maybe there might be some that's in there, but fruits and vegetables are also a natural source of fluids as well. And we all know that athletes deal with not all of them hydrate the way they should too, and so when we talk about something that's more filling, and again, this powder is something that's heavily processed, right? So getting away from or trying to stay in vein with this, if we're talking about fruits and vegetables and this being part of the whole food diet, this powder really doesn't meet that, so again, I'm not anti any, if there is a research-based, if there's something I can stand on to say, hey, you know what, this could be possibly beneficial for you, I'll talk them through it. But when it comes to the powders, you can't out supplement a bad diet, and so that's something I like to emphasize with our athletes. I'm like, you can find supplement. You could basically survive. You probably won't necessarily feel the best, and the longevity wise won't necessarily be the best, but there are so many, you mentioned food-like foods out there, that and powders and proteins. I have guys in my football team who I question if they even eat chicken, steak, or whatever. They're just putting down 6 or 7 protein shakes, a day, so the way I combat that is just like, hey man, there are things that you're going to find naturally and that your body's going to be able to absorb even better, through whole foods, and you're going to be able to get in any of these powders, etc. And they're so expensive. That's one other thing too, one of the green supplements that's out there, I think it's over $3 a serving. And I'm just like, man, you can, even with the price of fruits and vegetables being on the higher end, you're still going to be saving money by buying it fresh and getting all those active nutrients, phytonutrients, that you wouldn't be finding, in this powder, So, but yeah, it's a conversation again to really just have with the individual athletes, see what their overall goal is, and see if we can just kind of find a middle ground, that will incorporate both the whole, but also, hey, okay, you can do a scoop of this every 2 days or something, so you're not, and that actually maybe help you save and make that, last a little longer too, instead of having to re-up after 30 days. Yeah. So. Oh, I can't hear you any longer, Doc.
I could talk all day with you about this. So I really appreciate you taking the time to just share your story and some of your experience with us. If anyone after this has additional questions, feel free to reach out. I would be glad to, talk with Isaac and get any additional questions answered. So thank you for your time at Coach's Corner. Please, again, fill out the evaluation so we can, better understand what you need and want from this webinar. So Isaac, thanks again for coming and being our guest.
No problem. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.